Ready? All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. An executive session was held in advance of this meeting to discuss personnel, contract, and legal matters. If everybody could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time, we're going to perform our board reorganization, and I'm going to be opening for the election of a temporary president, accepting nominations at this time.
I nominate Marcy Walburn.
Second.
All right, if there are no other nominations for temporary president at this time, I will move to close nominations.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All right, now we will cast votes. No?
No, because there's, no.
Okay. All right, we're good. So by default, congratulations, Ms. Wilburn. At this time, I'll make a motion to approve Ms. Wilburn as a temporary president.
Second.
Any discussion? Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. And I will now hand the meeting over to Mrs. Wilburn.
Speech.
Oh, gosh, no, not even. Feel bamboozled. Okay, I'd like to move on to B, which will accept nominations for the election of our new president.
I nominate Jonathan Fry.
Second.
Any additional nominations? All right. Okay, I will move to close the nominations.
Second.
Oh, do we need it?
Apparently, we don't have to cast votes.
Okay. Oh,
Just
do we
make
have
the
to cast?
motion. Nope.
Oh,
Just make the motion to approve.
okay. I'll make a motion to approve the president of Jonathan Fry.
Second.
Any discussion?
Hearing none, motion.
Hearing none, motion carries. But I wanted to do that.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, at this time, we will take nominations for our vice president.
I'd like to nominate Dr. Michael Jones for Vice President.
I'll second. Are there any other nominations? All right, hearing none, I'll move to close and make a motion to approve Dr. Michael Jones as board vice president.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Hearing none, motion carries. Congratulations, Dr. Michael Jones.
Short reign, Marcy.
Short tenure. Right, okay. All right. Now we have a motion to adopt the agenda.
So
Second.
moved.
Oh,
So moved.
second.
Any discussion? Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. All right, at this time, are there any public comments on agenda items only? If so, please come to the microphone. Or anything online? All right, moving right along. Looking to move a motion to approve the minutes for the November 8th, 2022 regular board meeting.
So moved.
Second. Oh,
Any discussion? Hearing none, motion carries. And now I will hand this meeting over to Dr. John Fox for some presentations.
All right, thank you very much. This is one of our favorite times of the year. Happy holidays, everybody, and we have some great holiday presentations happening this evening for you. So to start things off, I'm going to introduce Mrs. Michelle Comp, our elementary principal, to award and thank some of our outstanding students for their creations of our holiday greeting card. Mrs. Comp?
Okay, so I'm sharing with you this lovely penguin ice skating drawn by our fourth grader, Harper Brackville, who is in Miss.
All right, for our middle school middle school winner, we have Kimberly Kennedy. She's our 6th grade student, Mrs. Richmond's class. Mr. Ward and I whittled down. We had about 90 some applicants. We whittled down to 5, and then I brought the experts in, which are my kids, and this is the one they like the most. So, Kimberly Kennedy, if you'd like to come down, get a picture with us, and get you some cookies to take home.
Thank you. This year's high school winner is Amber Gearhold. And if this picture does not get you in the Christmas spirit, I do not know what will. So, Amber, come on down.
And going right along with the holiday theme. And what better way to kind of bring a little spirit back into us is to welcome Mrs. Jennifer Flowers and the middle school choir for their nice evening kind of gear up performance with us this evening. Mrs. Flowers?
everybody in the district to our concert next Tuesday at 7 o'clock.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And once again, one more round of applause. Thank you very, very much. With your hard work and talents, I think you single-handedly or collectively as a group were able to eradicate some of the Scrooge out of me. So good job, everybody. And thank you for coming together this evening and taking the time out to share all of your hard work and your talents and the power of music and song together with us this evening. So once again, thank you so much.
Is the concert is the concert next Tuesday in the high school?
Yes.
Yes, it is. And it also has the middle school band. And this doesn't include everybody. This is just a portion of our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. We have 135 students in 5th through 8th that are in chorus. Okay, everybody look right here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks again, everybody. Appreciate it.
Okay, we're going to let them walk, and then we're going
All right. Kind of moving along in terms of presentations. We have a really important presentation, and we said before when our partnership with Crabtree Rorba and Associates to perform our comprehensive feasibility and enrollment study, that they would come in throughout different months to provide updates of information. And this evening, they're going to provide some enrollment projection numbers to us. So please enjoy the presentation, enjoy the numbers, ask any pertinent questions that are needed at this time. Oh, and joining us this evening is Mr. Anthony Colstock and Dr. Fred Witham. Thank you.
So as Dr. Fox mentioned, what we're going to present to you tonight is projected enrollments, and tonight I brought Dr. Fred Witham along. Fred is our Director of Educational Planning. He is a retired superintendent from Cumberland Valley School District. He also worked as an administrator and a teacher at South Middleton School District. So just to remind everybody, a couple of the things that's required for the Department of Education study is those projected enrollments. We'll look at the department's numbers combined with some demographics and an analysis that Dr. Witham puts together. So he's going to present the next few slides to go over those enrollment projections for total district, and then also he broke them down by grade level, and then do a comparison of our numbers compared to the Department of Education's numbers, and then help you. Really what we want to get out of this is have you determine what you think is a good planning number for your future growth. And then based upon that planning number, it's going to help you make a determination what your facilities need for the next 5, 10, and 20 years. And then after his presentation, I'll go into what our next presentation will be in January. So I'll turn it over to Fred.
Thank you. Good evening. I wanted to take an opportunity to go through the background on the enrollment numbers. I'm not going to belabor it too much, but they're a little bit different in their approach. PDE has made no adjustments for the pandemic, and I think that's the most important thing that you need to know about their numbers. They publish for the district, for all school districts, annually enrollment projections. They made no adjustments to their methodology so that when you had the 1920 to 21 dip because of the pandemic, they built that dip into your enrollment going forward. So if there's anything to say about PDE at this point across the state, they are typically a little bit lower than I think you would expect. And I'm going to show you what they were just before the pandemic for the school district. We do make a COVID adjustment. What we did, that we assumed that by now all of the students who have left as a result of the pandemic are not coming back. The ones who came back are coming back. You'll probably have more trickle in over time, but you gotta have to make an assumption somewhere. But we went back and looked at your growth, both 3 years and 5 years prior to the pandemic, and we applied those growth rates to your current enrollment moving forward. So if anything, while PDEs are a little low, ours might be a little bit high. Again, this is something right now with all that's going on that you're going to have to settle in on a number that you ultimately feel comfortable with. Ours are high because you're probably not returning to the same rate of growth given the economy and rising interest prices and other things as quickly as flipping a switch at the beginning of this school year. And then lastly, we're taking an average of them, and all of the projected enrollments that we're using, we will use in the next phase against your capacities, are an average of PDE and our enrollments. Oops. So just historically, you can see that you were actually on a climb since 2013, 14. You had a little dip in there. You actually hit your 15-year high in 1920, just prior to the pandemic, with 1,828 students. So, it's really important, I think, for you as you start to think about this moving forward, because the numbers that you're looking at post-pandemic are still being influenced by the pandemic, but you were coming off of a situation where you were kind of you were moving. You actually picking up some kids. We also took a look at the distribution of your students. The thing about looking at the distribution of your students is, are you starting to see clusters of students in areas where maybe you had not seen them before? Given the topography and the geography of the school district, your kids are pretty much where you would expect them to be. Given the population centers and state game lands and elevation changes and those kinds of things. And each one of those dots represents a property where one of your students lives. We also broke it out and took a look at your elementary, your middle, and your high school, and your distribution is pretty much the same. If you laid these over top of each other, there's little variation in the grade levels with where your kids are living. Often we might see areas of homes that are older. We will get to, again, as we move forward a little bit more, that are turning over to younger families. So again, you might see pockets that are different in the elementary or middle and high school. But that's actually not the case. When you look at this, there are really no discernible anomalies when you compare where your elementary, middle, and high school students are living. Nor really is there any change in the clustering of students around socioeconomic. So your students who are utilizing your free and reduced lunch program are following the same geographic distribution that the rest of your student body is. I wanted to show you this, and I think this highlights one of the things that we've got to come to terms with as we look at these studies with PD. The red line is the PD enrollment projections at the end of the using the 1920 enrollment. And you can see that you were coming off that peak that I mentioned earlier, and at that point in time, they had you climbing out to 22, 23, and then starting to back off a little bit based on birth rates. You can see the orange line, which is the bottom line, which is their 21, 22 projections, which now includes that dip that you saw between 1920 and 2021. That is now baked into it. So there's quite a big range in the projection made using the same methodology, one prior to the pandemic and then one utilizing the years of enrollment that included the pandemic. Ours, with the 3-year and the 5-year, the gray line is our 3-year projection. Our 5-year projection is the blue line. You can see they're relatively close to each other. They're only differing by 43 students. K to 12, that's really not a big variance in what we're showing. We took an average, and you can see the average is the yellow line. It's the average of all the models. It's a bit above PDE's and below ours. And I should say it's the average of PDE's current. I did not average in the one from 3 years ago. So it's the average of PDE's most recent and then our 3-year and our 5-year. So, overall, you can see that as a district, you're pretty stable in the projections. I think the question will be, will you begin to again experience the growth that you were seeing just prior to the pandemic? As far as the elementary numbers, you can see that you're at 693 currently, and at the end of 5 years, you're anticipated to go up to 721. So about a classroom difference on the average projections from where you are now at the elementary level. Middle school level, you're at 570. You're anticipated to drop to 475. Again, or 476. That's in terms of a whole school, that's not a huge difference. I think what you're seeing in the middle school is you have larger elementary class sizes, and they have moved through, and they are starting to exit the middle school. But you have younger, larger class sizes that are moving up. You almost have two waves kind of moving through your attendance projections. And then your high school is projected as those classes are exiting, the larger classes are now exiting the middle school into the high school. The smaller upper elementary classes are going into the middle school. You're seeing that the high school enrollment is anticipated to climb before it really comes back down to, again, within a classroom or so of what the current enrollment is this school year. The one thing that I should also add about these that we want to take a little bit deeper look at as we go forward, any new or turnover of properties, so any new residential developments that have occurred within the past 3 and 5 years, and the students that result from those developments or changes in ownership are baked into your projections. If you begin to see an increase in residential units, either occupied by younger families or constructed beyond the current rate at which that is happening, then you might begin to see that projection go up again. Ultimately, the piece that's missing that we're just really starting to do the full analysis is how much space do you have in your schools? And if you've got numbers that are going up and you've got ample space, you're good to go. If you've got numbers that are going up but you're already crowded, you might find yourself in a little bit of a different situation. But we'll continue on. I think Anthony's going to talk a little bit more about that as we move forward. Any questions that I can answer for you?
Elementary enrollment projections, that's a pretty big swing there between you and what the PDE has. It's like 300 students just about.
Yes. There's the big difference in the methodology is the way in which we're calculating incoming kindergarten classes. PDE calculates it by looking at birth rates 5 years prior, and then they look at how many kids traditionally have you had from births 5 years prior entering into kindergarten. We look at what your kindergarten enrollment has been the past 3 and 5 years, and then we project that moving forward into your elementary classes. And remember that PDE is a little bit flawed. You also have, causing that spread, people whose children sat on the cusp of coming to school, and they held them for another year rather than go to kindergarten for the pandemic. So when that starts to get baked into your first grade numbers now in the way that we're doing the projections, we're actually starting to show that swing back towards a growth rate like you had prior at your kindergarten level where PDE hasn't. The reason you don't see that big discrepancy in middle and high school is we're not planning for kids who might come, we're projecting for kids who are already here. And that's why you get tighter agreement as you go up through the grade levels.
So PDE is not accounting for people who move into the district and then their kids are starting, they move in when the kids are 2, 3, 4 years old because they weren't born here, but then they enter kindergarten here, yeah.
They could, if you had a big influx of kids that were coming in and you had more kids in your kindergarten classes than were born in the district, then it would reflect and they would push that forward again. But again, I think you've got that dip that occurred where people had a choice around the pandemic, and PDs made no adjustment for that, so they're just considering, built into your projections, a low enrollment in kindergarten in the 2021 school year.
So we know for a fact we have 2 new housing developments in our district. They're building them as we speak. So am I correct in understanding your projections did not include any of that new housing?
They did not, but we have started to look at the average number of students per residential property by type, so single-family, multifamily apartments, those kinds of things. And what we want to do then is we've started to get some of the data on development. We can plug in then numbers that will give us an idea of how much faster your rate of increase may begin to occur as a result of properties that are coming online faster than they have historically. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head because I was actually just in that file today. On average, I think you're 0.4 students per residential unit, regardless of the type of unit. We know obviously, single-family home is going to bring something different than a 55-plus community, or townhouses. But on average, you can kind of use that as a pretty good rule of thumb. And at our next board meeting, we'll give you some of that information so that you can do some rough calculations and we can begin to add that into the factors as well.
So in terms of your projection, at least at this point, with not including these developments, which I do believe could be very significant to us moving forward because they're large relative to this area. So are you using just the best line fit, or are you using your projections?
We're using the average currently, and if you look at these and you say, when we're all done with this, we really like your 3 years, it's a little bit higher, or we really like your 5 years. Ultimately, you and the administration have to, decide on what number you want to use. The reason we took the average again is we know that PDE is pushing a projection that's going to be a little bit lower. We're pushing a projection that may be a little bit higher. We think you'll get there, but maybe not today. So as a result, by kind of taking out the average of the 2, it's a good place to start to figure out where you are in terms of your capacity.
So just to follow on with that then, in your elementary enrollment, am I right in seeing then that we are actually 70 students lower than we were in 2019? That projection is going to be projecting us out, because I know you mentioned we are about a classroom higher than we would be currently, but we're actually 70 lower than what we were before the pandemic.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And did you take any, did you use any census data from 2020 since there was a census done?
The census data is not in the enrollment projections. We're actually using students enrolled in school, but we do have the census data available to you, and you can see in the census data changes within the municipal boundaries as you move forward.
Yeah, I'm just thinking for the birth to 5, that's really probably the best place to get that data.
And we do have that available. As a matter of fact, it's actually in with all those files and residential units and those kinds of things. So the data exists, we have mined it, and now we want to give you your base enrollment projections and then build on them to kind of give you, really a good picture that you can use to decide how many students you want to plan for at each level. Good questions.
How often does PDE do their projections?
They do them annually,
Okay.
and typically they come out in April, but since nobody seems to be working at PDE, we don't know. Last year, they didn't come out until almost August, but they are a year behind in their projections.
So did I understand you correctly? At our next meeting, you're going to show us updated projections, including the new housing developments?
Yes, we can include those. We'll include those in with that, because the other piece that we want to look at then is how many seats do you actually have in your schools.
Is there any other questions for Dr. Witham? So as he mentioned, the next step and what we've been working on is to determine how many seats you currently have in all of your facilities. So what we'll do is we'll compare that capacity of your schools to the enrollment projections. And we'll ask you to determine what planning number that you want to use. And then we'll make that comparison and let you know if we feel that your buildings are overcrowded, underutilized. We've been meeting with the principals to discuss with them how they currently use the spaces as far as educational spaces from support spaces to determine what that building capacity is. Can kind of give you a little bit of a preview. We've looked at the middle school and the high school and feel with those projections that were shown, it's not including the residential projections that will be added into it, but you're at a comfortable level for this growth because it's somewhat steady. Still have to finish looking at the elementary school, but this is what we'll present to you in January. And then in February, we'll come back, and this is when we'll show you our assessment of the existing conditions of all the facilities. So we're going to have a civil engineer, mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineer, as well as architect that will look at the existing buildings, note the deficiencies, and if they are past their life cycle or if they're not within the life cycle,